my
Can
screen.
go on.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to CoopCongo. This is our weekly dialogue, so welcome, everyone. This week, this dialogue is usually organized for the benefit of CoopCongo's members and all the entire Congolese community. This is just for us to be educated on different points. So last week, I was educated us on the investment. So we had a very good talk about investment. So we were so fortunate to learn uh, about investment, what type of investment do exist, factors to consider when investing, and so on. It was a pretty good topic that we have to stop. I believe we stopped it on where we were supposed to do the differences between the investing and saving, something like that.
Yes.
So yeah, so today basically we carry on from there. So and then I think we talk mostly about the savings. So and then we know the difference between savings and investing, which is a very good topic to. So I won't take much of your time. So I will before we carry on, so I'll just to let you know, guys, that we can write down your questions because we're gonna have a session for question at the end of the meeting, at the end of the presentation. So those who want to write them out, write them down, you can, and those who would like to ask, you can as well. So without wasting time, I will hand it over to you, Eric.
Mr. Kabea, I think, je pense que nous avons aussi, certains d'entre nous parlent français.
Okay,
Un
okay,
petit mot,
okay,
merci.
ok. Bonsoir tout le monde, bonsoir et bienvenue à COP Congo, COP Congo Dialogue. C'est un dialogue que nous tenons chaque euh, jeudi soir. C'est juste pour nous instruire. Euh, la semaine passée, nous avons eu un dialogue sur investment, sur investment.
Investissement.
Investissement, thank you. So, yeah, on a eu un topic sur les investissements, comment investir, les facteurs à considérer quand on fait un investissement et tout. C'était un sujet très enrichissant. Et ce soir, nous allons continuer avec le même topic par le même orateur qui était M. Eric Malébé. Et nous allons continuer en parlant, en épinglant un peu sur la différence entre un investissement et une épargne. Yeah, je pense qu'on va toucher à l'épargne et à l'investissement ce soir. Et notre orateur se nomme Eric Malébé, à qui je vais déjà remettre le micro. Merci. Eric.
Merci Michel, merci Tché. Bonsoir, chers membres de Coupe Congo et membres de notre communauté congolaise. Comme Michel nous a dit, je m'appelle Eric Malebe. Je fais partie du comité des Investments, Savings and Loans. So we have three main responsibilities: investments, savings, and loans. And for you that were in our discussion last week, we started with investments. We spoke about investments. We talk about what is an investment. I'll just go into my presentation just to revise a little bit or to refresh the minds for people that were in the discussion last week. We discussed an investment. An investment, we said, is an asset that is acquired for the purpose of generating wealth, and that wealth can be generated through either income or capital growth. And we looked at the different assets that exist. I'll go through that just now. We looked at the different assets that exist. Um, and we spoke a little bit more about asset class, which is how in the investment world we class certain assets based on the profile and the characteristics of those assets. So some assets have higher risk, some assets have lower risk, and some assets generate income or cash flow. Some assets are purchased mainly to increase your capital growth over time, to appreciate your capital. And based on those different profiles, we'll then create what's called an asset class. And based on how you want to invest and how long you want to invest for, you'll then have an asset allocation. So you will split up your different assets to make sure that you can maximize on your return over time. So that was at a very high level what we went into. And then we considered things like risk. Certain assets have more risk than other assets. And then we talked a little bit more about diversification and things like that. So we spoke, I think, in a lot of detail, but really just trying to understand the concept of investment. So today we will expand on that a little bit more when we talk about savings. So investment is about generating wealth, long-term wealth. Savings is a very, very simple concept, and everybody knows what saving is. It's putting money away for not just for an emergency, but putting money away in a safe place. So the image I have here in front of you should be it explains it very well. Investment is like planting a tree because you're trying to generate wealth over time. Savings is keeping money under your mattress or keeping money in the bank, somewhere that's safe, somewhere that can't get broken into, because you want to use that money for something in the short or medium term. So there's a time factor between savings and investments that's very important. It's not always the case, but it's very important. Those of you that were in the presentation last week, you will recognize this slide. And this was when I was talking about asset classes. And I said that depending on the type of asset you have, it will fall into a certain category. Now, savings as an asset class will fall in the cash category. Okay, so cash, which is at the bottom left of your screen, cash includes things like your fixed deposit, your money market funds, your savings accounts. Those all get classified in the asset class world as cash. Okay, what that means is that cash or savings in general, if you look at the risk that we were talking about last week, cash is a very low risk savings instrument, or is a very low risk type of asset. Cash is also something that gives you income. So when you have a savings product or a savings account, the return you get there is usually going to be income. And what I mean by income is you get an interest rate. Okay, so it's usually going to be a compounded rate of interest that you'll get on a monthly basis, or some products are quarterly or annually. But basically, with cash, the way you make money from it is through interest repayments that you get from the bank. So basically, you give your money to the bank. The bank says, "Thank you for giving us this deposit. Because you've decided to give us this deposit, we'll reward you with a certain level of interest every month. That interest is compounded, and they will pay you that interest into that account, so that the account will increase. It's usually a very, very small portion. Typically, because we were talking about risk and return, cash or savings will have a very, very low risk, but also a very, very low level of return. So that relationship between risk and return correlates a lot when it comes to things like savings. Because it's low risk, it generates a very low return. So when you're talking about investment in general, savings is always important, because when we talked about asset allocation, you want to maximize your return, and you want to have different types of assets when you invest to maximize your potential. So it's always important to have some savings, but it's also important to understand the use of a saving. What do we really need savings for? So what I did here is is just to, at a very high level, give you some characteristics of savings versus an investment, so you can contrast between the two. So savings will typically be capital guarantee. So that will mean when you give your money to the bank, generally it's safe. There's no risk that you may come one day and your money is not there anymore. You don't. It's not a wealth generating exercise. So last week when we were talking about investments, we talked about asset class, we talked about shares versus property versus this versus that. With savings, it's not the case. It's not something that you will do if you want to generate wealth. Savings are also easy to access. So a savings account, typically with a bank like CoopCongo, like any other bank out there, you put your money in the bank account. You're able to access that money whenever you want. If it's a normal savings account. If it's something like a fixed deposit where it requires a little more discipline, you will have to give some kind of notice before you get that money out. But generally, it's easy to access that money. You don't get good returns. I've got here above average returns. No. So to contrast that with an investment, you take a calculated amount of risk to get a return for that risk that you've taken. With savings, you don't take on any risk or a very minimal risk because the bank is basically it's very low risk. So you give your money to the bank holds it. The bank will do other things with that money, but they have to give you that guarantee that when you want that money, it is available. So the risk is very low. Because of that situation with savings, your returns are usually at inflation at most. Um, it's very difficult to earn a rate much higher than inflation like you would do with shares or a business or anything like that. So you just have to keep that in mind. And that's very, very critical that when you're getting a return that's lower than inflation, if you understand the concept of inflation, inflation is the purchasing power of your money. Your money loses value over time. So 5 Rand today is not worth 5 Rand in 5 years' time because the purchasing power of that money is decreased. Um, a savings account that gets you a return that's less than inflation is actually costing you money because of that concept of inflation and purchasing power. The third thing to consider with savings is the time frame. So last week when we spoke about investment, we spoke about certain assets are better to purchase for long-term investments. Some perform better in the short term. Some perform better in the medium term, right? So with savings, it's best for short and medium term because savings is something that's safe. It's something that's very low risk, and it's ideal for like an emergency fund. If you want to have money for a rainy day, it's ideal for maybe you saving to buy a car in a few years, or even if you want to buy a house cash, you don't want to risk that money. You want that money to be guaranteed. A savings product would be ideal for that sort of scenario. But if you're putting money away, hoping that that money will grow over time, then it would be better to look for something that's more flexible in terms of returns. Savings doesn't have that. The the other contrast here is tax efficiency. Okay, so last week we spoke about tax. We spoke about things like capital gain tax, which is tax that's charged on assets when an asset increases value. So the gain that you make from an asset gets taxed at a specific rate based on that profit that you made. Now, assets get taxed either at an income level or at a capital appreciation level or that capital gain. Your income gets taxed usually at the rate that you pay tax as an individual. If you're a tax paying individual, you'll get taxed or you'll get that tax paid out of your pocket, basically as your marginal rate of tax that you pay. With interest, what happens is the interest that you get is also taxed. So you can imagine if you already getting a return that's low, below inflation, it's also going to be taxed as an income that you're getting from this saving. So there's a lot of it's not ideal, but it also depends on your objective. That's very important. It's not to say that savings is bad. It's to say that you need to have a clear objective of what you're saving for. If it's something that's short or medium term, or it's something that you want to buy, like a car, for example, then saving is a good idea because the money is guaranteed. It's easy to access. It's short term type of initiative. When it's something more long term, you want to grow wealth. You should not look at savings because of things like the tax that will come with that product. And then the last contrast I have there is it's cost effective. So savings will typically be easy to set up. So if you look at your typical savings accounts with banks, can be from 20 Rand, 50 Rand, very cheap to set up a savings account. They charge a lot of fees for those accounts, but it's easy to set up. It's easy to manage as well. I can think of a bank like Capitec Bank, for example. They only have savings accounts. So and Capitec Bank is a very popular bank along for people with not as much income because their banking is simplified, it's easy, and they only have savings account. They only have one type of account. So I think in terms of what that savings account does for you, it gives you comfort or security. It's easy to access, and your money is guaranteed or safer. I can say that. Okay. The last part of this presentation, I just wanted to explain a little bit more about savings in the context of our future bank. So as a member of CoopCongo, it's being a member of CoopCongo is more of an investment than a saving, because number one, you're a shareholder, so you have shares, and we spoke about the fact that when you have shares, you get dividends if the company performs well or the cooperative performs well, and your shares also increase in value over time. So there's that capital growth, which talks to capital gain and that sort of thing. The other thing as well for CoopCongo, what we really want to keep doing as a committee and as a community is to develop products that speak to our needs, that speak to the needs of our community. So we know and understand that savings is a very, very important need in our community. But it's also an important need in terms of education. People look at savings in terms of security, in terms of safety, easy access, and that sort of thing, but must also look at it in terms of returns, in terms of things like opportunity cost. What are your objectives for saving, and what are the other options as a cooperative that we can offer apart from savings to help you achieve those objectives. So I think that's all I can share this evening, Michelle. I don't know if there's any questions or any feedback.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you for the presentation. It was all clear by me. So I would like to know, does anyone have any question? Do you have question? If you have question, you can just raise your hand and take over. So there's no question. So everything was clear.
I have a few questions.
Yes.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for the brilliant presentation again. So we have to thank you for your time, your expertise, and actually we are joyful that our own brothers and sisters, experts, can explain better to us the very complicated things that we see in our market here in South Africa. Nous vous remercions très sincèrement pour cela. Alors, mes questions, c'est celle-ci. Vous avez dit, you say that in savings accounts are very safe, and they, they have minimal risk or something like that from the bank. I believe it's linked to how risky the bank itself is. But the question is, I know some 20 years ago, you will put 10 Rand into your saving account, and you come back a year later, you will see it as either 10 Rand or maybe 11 Rand. But nowadays, if you put 1,000 Rand into your savings account, you come next year, you might be shocked that you even owe the bank, something like that. So what happened between those days and now in terms of all the banks for the savings account? That is the first question. And when you say savings account have minimal risks for the bank, what guarantees that minimal risk in terms of our situation here? We have our own cooperative. How do you see it that we will guarantee? What are the mechanisms? What are the factors that will assist us in minimizing the risk for our bank, for our cooperative bank, so that the money that people are putting into their savings accounts at CoopCongo will be channeled with the low risk as described for banks. And the third consideration is there is, I see on TV time to time, there is an advert saying if you save up to 30,000 per year, it is tax-free or something like that. I don't know if you're aware of that, and if maybe you can give us more information about that tax-free saving allowance from the government here in South Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll start with the tax-free savings. I'm not close to all the details of how the product is structured. What I do know is that this is an incentive that the government has, the South African government specifically, has put out into the market to encourage saving, to encourage people to save. And what they've done is that they've put a threshold of how much money you can save that it will not be taxed. So when I was talking about savings, I spoke a little bit about tax and how the interest that you earn from your savings is going to be taxed at a marginal rate. What the government has now done is created this product. When you invest in this product up to that threshold of 30,000, that money will be tax-free. That's essentially what that is about. So it's an incentive from the government to encourage people to save, and the incentive is that your savings will not be taxed. Around savings accounts, are they safe? You gave the example of back in the day. If I put money in, I'll know that I'll get my money out. Now I can get my money. I could get much less than what I did put in, and sometimes I may find myself owing the bank. So I think there's a few factors at play. There's things like interest rates. that play a big part in the rate that you get from your bank. So if you look at, for example, our system in South Africa, you've got the repo rate, which is what the Reserve Bank will charge the banks, the price of money. And the banks will then have their rate, which factors in that repo rate, and that's then what they will give out to their clients. So they'll have their margin that they give out to the clients. So the first part of the equation is the interest rate that is charged. The other part of the equation is the bank charges. So if the bank charges are made up of things like how often you transact on that account, what is your balance on that account. Uh, there's a lot of different factors, sometimes not even all that transparent, that they put in to factor this charge. There's administrative costs, cost of sending you statements, etc. So it is very, very possible that if you do nothing in that account for a year, it's costing the bank more to keep your account open than it is for them to just close it. So, that's in that scenario where they've been taking money from you because they're sending you statements, they writing to you, all these other benefits that maybe you're not aware of that you're getting for having an account with them. Those things cost money. So the savings account is not free. And I think you just have to bear that in mind. The interest rate part is more a systemic issue. So you look at places like Greece, for example, where they had a very bad systemic issue where the government was in debt, and that scenario is an extreme scenario, but that could be a scenario where there's no money in your bank, or you actually owe the bank money because the rates are so low, or the rates have even gone negative. In a normal, stable economic environment, that situation of you owing the bank money would be more likely where it's a very inactive account and you're getting charged more than what you're actually putting into that account. That would be that kind of scenario playing out. In terms of guarantees, I think, and this is more for CoopCongo. This is a very, very good question because it's very difficult. I had to think about it. Um, I think CoopCongo needs to leverage our common bond. These are the discussions that we are having as committees. Exactly how do we structure our products in a way that gives people peace of mind that the money that they're putting is being invested in a responsible way, and it's safe. So I think there's the fiduciary duties that come with a cooperative. There's all the monitoring and things like that come with the Reserve Bank, but also we have to leverage our common bond as a community. What I mean by that is when we are drafting these policies, it's important that people that are opening savings accounts are people that are, number one, members of the cooperative. Number two, because you are a member, there's a certain vetting that needs to happen. That includes things like having shares. So you are you are you are intrinsically invested in the cooperative. You're not an outsider just putting money, hot money as we call it, from somewhere, and then you hoping that you can just take that out for whatever reason. We want to have that social bond. We want to make the social bond quantifiable. So what metrics can we put to make sure that that social bond has a quantifiable check against it? So do you have shares? Are you a member? How long have you been a member? How did you become a member? And if we can put metrics against those kind of things, we give people peace of mind. Not just to say, yes, I know him, he's my friend or my cousin or whatever, but how do we put actual numbers or metrics to give people that peace of mind? At the end of the day, when someone puts their money in CoopCongo, into a savings account. The idea is that we will then use that money to make more money. So we will use that money to invest in other products that can ensure that that saver at the end of the day can get their money plus the interest that we say you will be able to provide. So we need to find, and we will have other means of investing that money to get a return that will satisfy people that are saving. I hope that that answered your questions.
Question,
Yes,
please.
thank you.
Mr. Mark?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes. I just want to ask Mr. Mark, is that okay? Is that
Yes, thank you. I'm covered. Thank you very much.
okay? Cool. Then, Mr. Bruno, you can go.
Thank you very much. As always, I commend Eric's presentation. Mais moi, je suis très flatté, Eric. On sent que tu maîtrises bien le domaine et il faut encourager, il faut vous encourager pour aller encore très loin dans l'utilisation de cette expertise que tu as, peut-être que tu ne constates pas. Mais moi qui suis dehors, je suis très flatté par la matière que tu connais et que tu peux mettre à la disposition de la communauté et qui peut te donner également une très bonne vie pour toi-même. Vraiment, félicitations pour la maîtrise de la matière. J'ai quelques préoccupations par rapport à la communauté et par rapport aux objectifs que nous sommes en train de poursuivre. Are you comfortable, Eric, if I ask my question in French?
No, 100%, tout à fait.
OK. J'ai quelques préoccupations. La première préoccupation, c'est l'avenir même de l'épargne par rapport aux nouvelles tendances qui sont en train de s'observer à ce moment. De plus en plus, on parle de la crypto-monnaie. Et surtout dans les milliers de jeunes comme vous. Beaucoup sont plus tournés vers là comme moyen d'économiser leur argent. Quel est votre point de vue par rapport à ça? La deuxième préoccupation, c'est par rapport à l'éducation des membres de notre communauté. Vous voyez, je crois que la fois passée, la semaine passée, j'avais également abordé le même aspect, l'aspect éducatif. Nous sommes dans une société où certains termes font peur. Quand vous dites à quelqu'un, j'ai investi, directement, il se saute. Alors, ce type doit avoir beaucoup d'argent. Ou quand vous lui dites, non, j'économise autant par mois, il vous dit, non, ce gars-là a beaucoup d'argent parce qu'il a quand même quelque chose à épargner. On doit arriver, si on veut encourager l'épargne, on doit arriver à démystifier en fait ces termes, les termes d'épargne, les termes d'investissement. Parce que certaines personnes pensent que pour investir, il faut avoir un grand capital, beaucoup d'argent, ou pour épargner, il faut avoir beaucoup d'argent. Il faut que nos membres, que tout le monde sache que investir comme épargner, c'est d'abord un problème de discipline. C'est d'abord un problème de discipline. Je lisais un livre qui m'a été suggéré par mon fils, qui m'a demandé de lui acheter un livre. Et quand je suis allé lui chercher ça, moi-même, j'ai feuilleté le livre. Au lieu d'acheter un exemplaire, j'ai acheté 2 pour que moi-même aussi, je garde cet exemplaire. The title of the book is The Richest Man of Babylon.
In Babylon.
L'homme le plus. Je crois que vous avez déjà lu ça.
Oui.
Ouais. Ce sont des livres pareils qui expliquent en termes simples comment on peut arriver à épargner. Je crois que nous devons mener en tant que CoopCongo, si nous voulons aider nos membres, nos frères de la communauté à venir vers nous, c'est en utilisant des stratégies pareilles de démystification des termes comme investissement, comme épargne, pour leur dire qu'il suffit d'avoir la discipline pour que si vous décidez d'investir, d'épargner par exemple $20 par jour, vous pouvez le faire, ou par mois, vous pouvez le faire. C'est un problème de discipline, parce que les moyens ne se feront jamais. Les moyens ne se feront jamais. Mais quand on a des objectifs, on peut se faire ces sacrifices-là pour mettre de côté 10 rand, 20 rand, 30 rand pour atteindre cet objectif-là. Voilà ce que je voulais dire. Sur le plan éducatif, les comités de saving investment, vous devez aussi aider à développer des stratégies d'éducation de la population, de la communauté, pour qu'ils arrivent à épargner. Parce que certaines personnes, vous voyez le phénomène Makeleba, par exemple. Le Makeleba est presque partout. Mais on peut sécuriser cela autrement. Mais les gens peut-être ne savent pas qu'on peut également utiliser la banque pour faire une sorte de liquide. Avec comme avantage, quand votre liquide passe par la banque, vous laissez même un profil qui peut vous aider à avoir un crédit plus tard de la banque, des choses pareilles. Donc, on doit commencer à réfléchir là. Je suis très content, même quand tu as dit que en tant que comité, vous réfléchissez déjà sur certains aspects. Voilà ce que je voulais dire.
Thank you. Thank you
Merci.
so much, Mr. Bruno.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. Sorry, Michel, do you want to?
No, I just wanted to say thanks to Mr. Bruno because what he said is very educative, and then I think we should take that. It's very powerful. And then I will look for that book, The Richest Man of Babylon. Sounds like an interesting
Man
book.
in Babylon, yes.
Okay, cool. So Eric, you can, I don't know, I think the first one was a question. So if you can answer that.
Yes, yes. So the first one, thanks, Michel. The first one was around the future of savings, future of money in a world where we're talking about crypto money and things like that, cryptocurrencies. Um, this is a difficult one. Personally, I don't invest in crypto money at all, but that's not because I don't agree with it or anything like that. I just feel that I don't understand it enough, and I don't like investing in something I don't understand. But that's personal. Um, I I don't know where the world is going 10, 20 years from now. What I do know and what we can see is that cash is becoming less and less visible in the market in the world. Everything is becoming more digital. I actually remember when I started to work in my professional life. One of the basic questions was, where does money come from? If you go to a bank and you ask for a loan of 1,000 rands, does the person at the bank go somewhere and open a safe and put together 1,000 rand? Now it doesn't work like that. You go to a bank, you ask for a loan of a 1,000 rand or 10,000 rand. They go to the computer, they log in, they put 10,000 on a keyboard, and like magic, you now have 10,000 in your account. So we know that the progression of things is more digital over time. The problem with crypto, like any technology, is we don't know what that currency is going to be. So Bitcoin might be the first, but Bitcoin, when you talk about technology, it's not actually the best currency. So maybe 20 years from now there'll be a currency that's much more efficient than Bitcoin. Maybe it's going to be Ethereum or whatever. So because of that, there's still a lot of competition in trying to understand what that currency is going to be. I think Facebook itself is also coming up with its own currency. I think there's central banks in Europe are talking about coming up with their own current digital currency. China has got its own digital currency that it's implementing. So we don't know which one is going to be relevant 20 years from now. And so there's a lot of uncertainty there. Uh, but what I can say is that the world is going to be more digital. We know that. We can see it already. So we need to be prepared for what that digital world is going to look like, or that digital money is going to look like. And we need to think about that as well as a bank. As a bank, banks are becoming more digital. banks are closing branches, not opening more branches. Banks are becoming more paperless, not more paper. Banks are having less people, not more people working in the bank. So these are all things that are progressing, that are telling us that the future is very different. You know, your bank will be on your phone. Maybe there'll be 100 different banks that are only accessible from your phone. That kind of stuff. So we need to consider that and balance that, but also not forget where people are right now. There's some people that don't do internet banking, that will never do internet banking. How do we cater for that market, and how do we prepare our community for the future? But I can't say for sure that Bitcoin is the currency of the future because I don't know. I don't know about that. In terms of education, I think it's very important, Papa Bruno. I agree with you 100%. I think that when we start giving out these products, especially things like business loans, we need to attach some kind of education or coaching or mentorship to a lot of these things that we want to offer our community. And the the reason why a lot of these terms are, you say you use the word demystify. It's very important because the financial industry itself is 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 one of the reasons why people are intimidated. Because like I was saying in the presentation last week, they love the idea that people don't know, because that's the incentives is that if you don't know, I tell you how to do it and you pay me. That's the idea. So it benefits them that people are not as educated about these things. So I think for us as a community, we have to attach education to our products. We have to attach mentorship. We have to be strong on that. That's what's going to make our bank strong. Is people that are engaged, people that are involved, and people that understand these things. So we need to talk about asset allocation. We need to talk about Bitcoin. We need to talk about all these things because that's how we're going to learn more and expose ourselves to these things. So I agree, and I think we need to do more and more with everything, all our products that we offer in the market.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Uh, Fabuno, are you sorted with the answer? Is that okay?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Eric.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any more question? We still have about 15 minutes. We can carry on.
Yeah, Michelle, I just want, if you allow, to follow up on a sub question that Mr. Papa Bruno spoke about.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Malebe, what will you think of Likelimba? I know we spoke about it. We had a session about Likelimbas. Thank you very much. But again, what will you think about Likelimba um, in terms of comparing it with products in the stream of terminologies that current banks are using? Is it saving or is it investment or whatever? Then the next thing I want to suggest is because somebody among us here said he will be looking for that book called The Richest Man of Babylon. I don't know if he can commit to drive a discussion around that after he has read it. I think the person is, after buying it and reading it, probably in 2-3 weeks' time, can the person replace Eric and just talk to us about that book so that we share the secret in the book? And also, do you feel we need another session just to talk about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin? Thank you.
Thank you for that. So in terms of Likelemba, I have mixed views on it. What I mean by mixed views is that I understand that they are widely used by our community. My parents use it on a regular basis, so it's very close to home. Um, I think there's a lot of risk from a bank's perspective to administer a Limba. What I mean by administer it is to, number one, to make sure everybody that's in that Likelemba have made their contribution, they've all been FICA'd, no one is missing a payment. If someone misses a payment, what happens? What are the penalties? All that sort of administration aspect of a Likelemba. Even right now, where banks offer a savings account for you to put your Likelemba money in there, the bank does not administer that. And I think that's precisely because there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it could even be a reputational issue for the bank if Likelemba was supposed to give a million rand at the end of the year, but one person didn't contribute, so now they can't get the money when it's their turn to get the money. It can get very messy, and I think even that discussion of Likelemba we had a few weeks ago, it did touch on the risk aspect of it. So how the banks have approached it is to say, we'll take money from anyone, that's fine. As long as you give us money, we will do what we've always done as a bank. We'll take your money, we'll put it in a savings, we'll call it a stokvel account, but really it's just a savings account. We can call a savings account anything. And we'll do what we do with other savings account. We might give you some few incentives, but really it's just another savings account. The Likelemba itself, the work is in the administration, is in how many people are allowed in this, what are the terms of this. All of that happens outside of the banking infrastructure. So my view is that it's useful in that sense, but if we give it some thought around how we manage risk and that uncertainty, it's something that we could look at from a banking perspective, but it would be very, very diluted if a bank had to manage a Likelemba the way people with a common bond manage it amongst themselves. There's a lot of leeway. There's a lot of different terms that a bank will just not be able to cater for. The administration will just be too much, I think. In terms of should we have more discussions about cryptocurrency, I have no problem with that. I think we need more discussions about everything. So there's no objections from me on that.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Yes. No, thank you very much, the organizer. Can I put it in French also, the way Papa Bruno talk about it?
Yeah, of course.
OK. Eric, merci beaucoup. Je suis vraiment très, très impressionné par ta connaissance et puis le développement que tu fais pour essayer de harmoniser la connaissance des gens et pour surtout discuter des aspects en termes de bénéfices et de challenge. En tout cas, les discussions que la présentation sont vraiment assez impressionnantes et éducatives. Je voudrais un peu aussi renforcer ce que Papa Bruno a dit tout à l'heure. Il faut vraiment porter beaucoup d'attention sur l'aspect éducation. Si je vois encore la première oratrice qui avait parlé de l'aspect culture de saving, c'est vraiment pauvrement développé chez nous. Bon, ça, il y a beaucoup de facteurs qui pourraient expliquer ça. Ce qui fait que maintenant, pour essayer de sortir les gens de ce marasme, je peux appeler, il faut absolument convaincre les gens en les amenant à comprendre les bénéfices de se retrouver en communauté et qu'est-ce que ça représente comme atout majeur. Alors, l'élément moderne, c'est aussi capital. S'il y a une référence par rapport à le livre que Papa Bruno a évoqué là, c'est aussi une façon d'harmoniser les vues des gens. C'est un peu quand nous allons au cours, en formation. On nous met tous dans un concept de comprendre les choses, le concept abstrait. On vous le facilite de manière à pouvoir le comprendre. Et quand vous le comprenez bien, vous n'avez plus de doute pour adhérer. Alors, le cryptocurrency, comme tu le sais, peut-être que tu pourras peut-être nous renforcer davantage, est un concept qui est en train d'envahir le monde. Et là, nous ne pouvons pas ignorer. Et si les banques, comme tu l'as dit, sont au niveau maintenant de fermer les succursales, tout ça, c'est parce que c'est une option qui est inévitable. Alors, pour être à l'avant-plan, pour être à jour et à l'avant-plan, il est tout à fait indiqué qu'on puisse mieux comprendre ça. C'est la raison pour laquelle je suis toujours présent à l'écoute et au dialogue pour mieux comprendre, parce que ma lecture à moi peut être insuffisante par rapport à ta lecture à toi. Et tenant compte de la fidélité ou ta compétence à parler et à me donner des éclaircissements, ça me permettait à la fois de bien comprendre le concept et pouvoir adhérer à participer à ça. Alors, si à ce niveau ici, nous parlons en termes de banque, alors les banques existantes font déjà des mutations internes. Alors, il faudra pas que nous, on se prépare en banque dans l'ancien concept. Il faut que nous nous préparions dans la banque dans un nouveau concept qui soit adapté. Sinon, ça serait un élément qui ne pourrait vraiment pas mettre les gens ensemble et adhérer aux objectifs. Donc, ce que je peux me résumer, c'est que c'est une initiative très, très encourageante. Ton expression est vraiment assez éducative. Le table de référence, c'est un peu comme qui dirait qu'il faut qu'il y ait une documentation. Si tout le monde peut lire ça, à ce moment-là, maintenant, la compréhension sera la même chose. Et puis, nous accompagner dans les nouveautés qui arrivent maintenant dans le concept actuel de cryptocurrency. Voilà mon input. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention.
Merci. Thank you. Eric?
No, thank you, Michel. No, I agree with those comments 100%. I think we do need to spend time on education. What I like there is that we need to be structured and deliberate. So we need to have some kind of outcomes when we do things, because I mean, I see here that someone has the book and we're going to share books, but not everybody is going to read. So I think we need to be structured, we need to be deliberate, but yeah, education is very important. We're talking about banks now. There's bank 2.0, the bank Papa Mark spoke about, where you could put 1,000 rand 10, 20 years ago. Those banks aren't working like that anymore. There's been so many cycles, and even after 2008, what happened in the world, that also changed the products that banks offer. So this is it's a continuously evolving environment, but we know that it's evolving to be more digital. And what are we doing as a cooperative to meet that digital challenge? So it's a challenge for all of us to answer those questions, but we need to be structured and deliberate about our education. It has to be crucial in how the bank develops.
Thank you very much. I can see that, okay, Eunice is going to share the book.
Yes.
But I'm not the one presenting on that. Okay. Okay, we still have 2 more minutes. I'm not too sure is there any other question?
can I ask
Yes.
something? I see one of the members of our committee is on the line, Patrick. If you can permit me, I wanted Patrick to maybe share something. Last week we were talking about property investing and property being debt and things like that. In the spirit of education, I think that's something that maybe we can you maybe share something around what we discussed about property last week, if you don't mind? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Patrick,
Thanks,
are you
Eric.
there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Good evening, everyone. So
Good
as
evening.
Eric mentioned, I also form part of the investment committee. So Eric, just to answer your question, yes. So last week, there was a comment in that when you buy a property with debt, you actually don't have an asset, but you actually have a liability. So with that, there seemed to be a message that it's actually a negative thing to have to buy a property with a liability. So our view on that is that's actually not really the way to look at it, because there is good debt and there's bad debt. I think that there'll be a session next week that will discuss debt as a whole. But just to elaborate on my point, so there's some debt that you can use to build wealth and some debt that will corrupt you. Debt to buy a house is debt to build wealth. So when you buy a house with debt, what you actually have is, yes, you'll have a liability, but you must look at it as a liability on the one hand and an asset on the other hand. And the net difference between the two is what your wealth is, and that is how you should look at it. You should measure your wealth versus looking at the debt in separation. So over time, as you repay the liability, you're actually also increasing your worth, because the property value will either stay the same or go up while your debt will drop. So in that case, you will actually be increasing your net worth. Another way of looking at it, if you had 1 million Rand cash, instead of using the full million Rand to buy one property, a more wiser approach will be to use debt to buy more properties. So for example, you can put 200,000 deposit on 5 different properties, and over time you will have 5 properties instead of having 1 property. And that's one way which debt can actually help you build wealth. So that's just my comment on that, just to clarify our view on that, because it's quite important in terms of our community understanding that, yes, debt can be negative, but we must also be wise to use debt to actually build wealth and to grow your wealth portfolio. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, Michelle. Can I also just on that? I think it's very important what Patrick said there around good debt and bad debt, because when you look at our survey, we saw that a lot of people do not take out loans, usually because maybe it's difficult or they don't have access. Number one, or number two, bad debt in our community is a dirty word. You know, it's debt is not something positive. But when you look at the wealthiest people in the world, and we're talking George Bezos, the very, very wealthy people in the world, they use debt, they use leverage to buy things, to do things. It's very difficult in this world to become wealthy without using debt at all. So that concept of debt is also an education thing that we need to focus on. That good debt versus bad debt. If I'm using a credit card to buy a pair of shoes, it's very different from me, as Patrick said, buying 5 houses with and putting 200,000 rand down as deposit. So that concept, I think it's very, very important that I think we'll discuss in more detail in the next session. Elsie.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric. And then thank you, everyone, because I think we've reached We passed 3 minutes late already. No, 3 minutes past. I mean. Okay, and yes.
Can I greet somebody?
Can you?
My name is Alfani. It is my first time to participate in this one, and I'm so happy to hear about what you are doing. And thank you so much for this project. I mean, I didn't know about this project. I saw it in Eritrea, and I said I'm very, very interested, and I can come and listen to you guys. But I found some talent here that will be useful for many, many young people coming tomorrow. I mean, thank you so much for your presentation and what you are doing for Congolese people. I think it's very, very good for us. Thank you so much. I am in the United States and following you almost point by point for what you said. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gulwe. On the same note, so you are invited to come again next Thursday because our committee will still have another topic that we're gonna carry on, I think, with the loans. So we did the investment, we did savings, and then we're gonna have the loan next week. So please bring more people, and thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I'm not too sure if Mr. Mark Pass had the last words. Otherwise, we should say goodbye to everyone.
Thank you very much. The last word is just to say thank you on behalf of CoopCongo management and board, and also on behalf of the community for your time organizing and sharing this with everyone. Thank you and God bless you. Back to you, Mr. Kalou.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.